But you know what's really fun, friend?
Yeah,
It's fun walking out of a nice theater on this lovely June 7th night in 2018.
I love living in this present age.
This present age.
Looks like the Democrats are gonna pick up some seats in the midterm
Oh
elections.
yeah, I think so too.
Feel healthy. I feel like it's gonna be a healthy world for the next, I don't know, decade.
Dude, how fucking old am I? 2018, 28.
Yeah,
Fuck.
we're finishing our 20s,
Yeah.
right?
The world's ahead of
The
us.
world's ahead of us.
My knees only hurt a little.
The new decade. Did you hear that in a couple of years all the holidays will be on a Friday or a Saturday?
Did you hear that Endgame is coming out next year?
Oh shit!
Oh shit, it is.
Shit. Yeah, we saw that. We saw that first shit this year.
We did. We saw
Yeah.
we saw Infinity War, and it was ooh. We did Pikachu face when Thanos snapped.
I feel like the world is gonna be just into Marvel for.
Yeah, but what are we watching today, friend? What did we just watch?
We watched a movie called Hereditary.
A movie that we have never talked about before ever in our lives.
Never. I feel like this movie might sit with me for a little bit. I don't know. I feel like, I'll remember this movie.
Yeah, I remember this for quite a bit.
Yeah.
No, this is not gonna keep up.
No.
Absolutely not.
It's December 21st, 2024.
Yeah, it's our first official day of break.
Yeah, the world was ahead of us, just in a different way than we imagined.
You know, the more things change, the more things stay the same.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're back, baby.
Democrats pick up some midterm seats.
Damn, that hurts. Yeah. All right. So yeah, we're back in the good old time of 2024. And we have never talked about a movie like this, I feel. Like a movie that we both just genuinely like.
No, we didn't do a podcast episode strictly for the love of the game. I mean, I think the closest thing we did was for How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, that's fair. But that's
Mm-hmm.
also very different. Like it's a different beast trying to tackle a 9-season show than
absolutely
a 2-hour movie.
One is more tackleable than the other.
Oh, for sure. Some would say it's finishable.
But why are we doing this episode, young Javier?
It is 100th movie review episode.
Javi,
of the mainline Cine-Scoots.
We can officially say we stuck with something.
Yeah. We have fun.
We stuck with something a long time ago before this, but we really stuck.
And I do want to say, like, the only reason why we are technically way over 100 episodes is because we did a few How I Met Your Mother episodes. We did 8 of them, but those were like its own like thing. Did we
even get through 8, or did we?
We did 8 and we never finished 9.
Okay, so we only had one more to finish. All right, not bad.
Yeah,
not bad.
Because our plan was we're gonna do 8, and then next summer we were gonna finish because it was all How I Met Your Mother summer.
It was How I Met Your Mother,
and it was like the last week of summer when we did 8.
Yeah, the next summer came and went.
Something very important happened. It took away a lot of time.
For sure.
But anyway, yeah. So this, like you said, this is probably the first time we're watching a movie that came out a long time ago, just because we want to talk about it because we love it.
Yep.
And that is 2018's Hereditary. I could not imagine going back through our episodes and seeing how many times we've talked about this movie, but it's definitely up.
So I have a story of whenever I see this movie, or whenever I talk about this movie, of how this movie and this summer of movies impacted me. I'm going to ask you
2018?
Yeah. I'm going to ask you kind of off the cuff, in just like a few sentences. How did you know during 2018 that when you saw Hereditary, you were impacted by it?
That's a good question. I think this is one of those movies that, like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I had no expectations, and somehow those non-expectations were blown out of the water for me.
Yeah.
And also in my head, I was like, I really love this, but I know people are going to hate this.
Oh, yeah. I kind of forgot that some people hate this.
Because it's not your traditional horror movie.
No.
Like, especially...
Well, back then it felt less like your traditional horror movie than it does now. I feel like now there's more movies that have... What is it called? We've used the term
generational trauma,
but also like elevated horror.
Oh yeah,
Both have become a more tapped into genre.
Yeah, the Babadook effect.
Yes.
Yeah,
but not as much as when this came out.
No, I feel like this movie really started a trend though.
Yeah,
where a lot of movies tried to mimic like the style of a Hereditary. I feel like even before you had movies like the Babadook, you had movies like The Witch. You had some elevated horror movies, but they all felt different.
Yeah.
For the most, for better or worse, right?
Yeah.
For better or worse, you could be like, yeah, these two movies, like, they feel like they're on a different level.
I definitely though on a different level, but I definitely like once I saw this, and I think The Witch was that previous fall,
Is it really that?
or maybe it was 20. Maybe The Witch was 2016. Anyway, The Witch. When I saw this,
It's 2015.
oh wow, okay. So I saw this, and I saw The Witch, and I kind of put them together immediately, and I was like, these two belong in a similar basket.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it does help that like they're both, um,
A24.
they're both A24
Yeah.
movies, so like that automatically lends itself to some comparison. But like 2018, I feel like it's also a movie that if you ask me what movies came out in 2018, I'd be like, dude, Spider-Verse.
Dude, I can fucking tell you because here's how I know that this movie was impactful to me. Um, I saw this movie and I loved it, but I was like, man, that was fucked up. You want to know what the next thing we saw right after that was, or at least that I saw?
I mean, it's 2018. Rampage?
No, it was "Won't You Be My Neighbor," the Mr.
Oh yeah,
the Mister
the
Rogers
Mr. Rogers.
documentary, and it was like eyewash for this movie.
It really do be eye bleach for this.
And then the next movie we saw was "Sorry to Bother You."
Holy shit, dude, that's a sandwich.
That was also fucked up. And then the next movie I saw after that was Eighth Grade by Bo Burnham, and that was also eyewash for that. So I basically had like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Candy, what the fuck? And it was
a good point.
It was a good summer of roller coaster film.
Yeah, that's crazy. 2018, like I said, like at least for me, don't get me wrong. I remember watching Won't You Be My Neighbor, and even as someone who was never into Mr. Rogers,
Yeah,
I remember feeling that like that joy and that happiness
yes.
for like him and for his fans.
Yep.
To the point where like even I almost teared up in some scenes. But yeah, contrasted with like everything else that I saw that year besides Spider-Verse, besides Infinity War, I really don't have a lot of like 2018 movies that I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. 2019 I feel like was a banger year.
Bigger year.
So like the fact that 2018 is kind of,
Yeah.
for me, really the year of Hereditary.
Yeah.
It's the one movie that I'm like, I know for a fact that in Infinity War
is what it is.
Is what it is for me. But yeah, this is my, I don't think it's hyperbolic for me to say this is my all-time favorite movie. I watch this shit any chance I get. If Katie ever goes on a trip, I will watch this movie.
Shit in? Yeah.
I pop this shit in. I get all cozy. I make my tea. I watch this movie.
Yeah.
I have a jolly old good time watching a family fall apart.
With the pitter-patter of rain on the window panes.
With the pitter-patter of rain. And I think for me, like, the reason why I love it is because even though it is fucked up, it is very sad.
Yeah.
It is still genuinely a scary movie when you watch it.
It
and
is.
I love that this movie is able to keep that even on my 20th rewatch-ish.
Wow.
I watch this movie a lot.
Yeah. I walk away with this movie every time just feeling that pit in my stomach. But it's such a well executed pit that I can sit through multiple rewatches.
Yeah, I'm curious about that for you because like you and I are both horror fans.
Yep.
But I feel like our horror fanness,
you're more of a horror fan than I am.
Yeah, it's definitely skewed, right?
Yes.
Where I feel like you like more traditional horror, I think.
Yeah, possibly. I think I can only take so much.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like you're more of a traditional, like I will watch whatever the new, horror movie that's out that seems more like for the masses, right? Yes. Like I still don't think I could make Thanos sit through like a Terrifier, make him sit through like.
Which is funny because I've got a proposition for you for later.
Oh, fascinating.
We'll get to it.
But like we watch like all the mainstream horror movies together for the most part.
Yeah.
Right. And this movie, I think that's also the biggest problem. The biggest problem with this is this was pitched as a traditional mainstream horror movie. Like if you ever go back and watch that first trailer for this movie,
yeah,
it makes it feel like it's going to be jump scare galore. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a jolly good time where some things happen and you're going to be like, oh, look at that.
Well, what's the big scary in the trailer, Javi? What's obviously who's the character that's obviously got all the problems in the trailer?
It's pitched as Charlie being
exactly.
Right. Oh, by the way, we're not even talking about like no non-spoilers here. This movie is this movie is 6 years old.
Get on it, people.
Get out of here. Get out of it. Yeah. So like, it's crazy to me that this movie really like hinges on the Charlie dynamic.
Yep.
And I made a note because like I was watching it and I actually for the first time sat down and took notes on this shit.
Wow.
And
Wow.
every once in a while I will, like if I'm rewatching something I will go and I know we're talking about it. I will take my Google Notes and I will take notes as I'm watching the movie.
I took notes during this movie as well.
I remember you sent me some, but like just going through like the plot of this movie, if you're just telling someone like this is what's happening, it sounds so mundane to a certain point.
Yes.
You're like, oh, they're at a funeral and they're estranged.
I have a difficulty explaining the synopsis of this movie to people other than it's about a family falling apart, which is kind of what the synopsis is.
I do think the synopsis is like very, very concise to what it is. Like it really is a family grieving for various reasons.
Shall we use this as the first stepping off point of our new segment that we want to build, where you have me read my own version of a synopsis?
Yeah. So what happens in the story, Thano?
This movie I like to call "These White People Need to Go to Church."
Yeah,
because they're sad and they're going through some troubles, but they handle that shit in the wrong way.
All in the wrong way.
And let's bring in the mid 2020s by saying, yes, there is a wrong way to handle your grief.
They're absolutely. Wait, what?
There is a wrong way to handle.
Do people say there's no wrong way to grieve? Because dude, I can name like 3 right now, and this is one of them.
Having grown up in an immigrant household and having extended family, I can tell you that there are multiple wrong ways to grieve.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
So this movie kicks off with our main. It's an obituary, right? It starts with talking about Lee.
An obituary that is also very like bare bones. Like it has like the hint of like sadness formality, but like
it's about no contact, like no content at all.
This bitch died. She left behind these people. Like she will be missed.
And I think it's meant to be written by Annie.
Yes.
Right. So like it makes sense. Annie and her, even though they have reconnected, they still hold a strained relationship. Right. This is where we are introduced to our main character, which is Toni Collette.
Right.
Who was once again snubbed.
Yes.
Dude, every time I watch this, I'm like, this is just a really good, not just a good horror performance. This is just a good performance from a person.
Has she anything since?
Anything like Oscar level?
Yeah.
No.
Sad.
No, I think at best maybe she's won some like what are they called? Like some of the lesser tier awards, but I don't think she's won anything to the same degree of like a Golden Globe or the what are the other one called? Because the Globes are the French ones, right?
Oh, the Hollywood Foreign Press. So I don't know. I mean, yeah. But anyway, so nothing huge.
Nothing huge. She's got 58 wins to her like under her belt, but I don't think anything is like necessarily substantial. She won an Oscar nomination for The Sixth Sense. She did win a Saturn Award, which is like basically the Oscars for like genre movies. It's like science fiction, fantasy, horror.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, that's kind of built in.
So I would say her work is definitely expanded post Hereditary.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are starting to kind of like
that there's acting potential here.
Yeah. I wonder if she'll finally get her like Leo moment.
Yes.
Where she wins something for a role that maybe wasn't her best, but it's like a recognition of everything that she has done.
Yeah. I don't think it'll have the same cultural impact as like Leo doing it because like, she's not as big of a meme.
Yeah, this is fucking nuts though. So when we start the movie, we see all the miniatures, right? Because that's what she does.
She makes dolls.
She makes little, not necessarily just dolls.
Yes, I use dolls as an insulting term for her career. She makes miniature art.
Yeah, miniature art. And I'm sitting there going like, this is so fucking funny to me because a lot of the times when you're watching a horror movie, people will have the most generic jobs.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he is a teacher. He is a nurse. He is a doctor.
She is a plumber.
Something.
Yes.
Yeah. Here, it's like, she makes miniature art. That is very niche.
Very niche. And then also, as famously been discussed by many, many people, the screen opens and you see, it opens into like the view of a dollhouse that then pans into. And it was so disjarring that first time. We were like, what the fuck is happening? To the point where it's left me such an impact. Where I thought that when watching the trailer for Heretic, another one-word movie that starts with an H, I thought that movie was doing something like
similar.
this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's weird. And one of the things that I pointed out this time is that in that zooming in sequence, I still can't tell when it cuts to the real people. I don't know how they did it. I don't know if it's like CG and then or if they did that thing where they take 2 shots and then splice them together. But it's so trippy to me.
Yeah.
How like it still looks like it's the same continuous shot. It's weird. Because we see the outside of the house, so we know we are already in the house, but then we go in the house.
Yes.
Which is some Inception level shit. I do think it's very fitting with the miniature theme because it's all about like things that you manipulate, really tiny things that you're like building and you're controlling.
Yeah.
Which then plays into the whole shit with the cult at the end of the movie.
Well, and then pretty soon, this is not our first scene after, but pretty soon we get a scene of Peter in school. Mm-hmm. The first class that we get.
Talking about Heracles.
Is the English teacher talking about Hercules, right? That he's
Heracles, right?
Heracles is just the Greek.
I thought they were two different.
No, same dude. Heracles is just the Greek name. Hercules is the Latin name. You may be thinking of Odysseus and Theseus.
No,
but Heracles and Hercules are the same person.
Okay.
Because they're even talking about the labors. And they're talking about,
you're right.
Is it more tragic that this is fate? Or is it more tragic? Or would it have been more tragic if he had some control over the matter?
Less. Okay. Yeah. Why? Because.
Right.
It always makes me laugh.
Yeah. But you get once you get to that scene, then it's clear as to like what the whole dollhouse thing was going at. When you're like, like something about this movie is going to be about things that are outside of these characters' control, right? Mm-hmm. You still have no fucking clue as to how it's going to get there. But it is amazing just how disjarring that opening sequence is.
Yeah, and going back to that scene where they're at the school and they're talking, they finish that, and one of the classmates says that it's more tragic because like it means that like they're all just pawns in like a hopeless machine, right? So like something that's meant to happen and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, there's always that argument that pops up when people discuss this movie, like to what degree is shit just like predestined to happen?
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a couple of scenes on here that make it seem like the cult is not necessarily like real, but then there's a lot of scenes that are like, well, how would you explain this if it's not?
Well, what do you mean when you say real or not real? What do you mean? Because
so skipping a little bit ahead, right? When they go to the party, so Charlie she's got some sort of condition, right? Like it's never specifically said what it is.
It's an allergy.
She does have an allergy situation. But as far as like her behavior goes,
I see.
It's not necessarily specified if it's some sort of like spectrum thing, but she's also been raised by the grandma with the intention of placing this, demon inside of her.
Right.
Right. So you're never quite sure if this is something that's how she was born.
Yeah.
Or this is a side effect of the grandma literally putting a demon in her and it's distorting her.
Yeah.
Not just physically, but also like mentally.
Mentally.
Right? Because she's got that nervous tick, the clicking of the tongue, right?
Which I use to scare people for so much.
Oh, you were that asshole. But so because of that, like there's a lot of things that people go, okay, how can they predict that they are going to cross at this specific point and veer off this right way and not this right way?
Oh, I see.
Like it all feels like it's very convenient, but then you also have this is the influence of Paimon, right?
Yeah, I think two things. One, I think the element of not having the mechanism fully explained is what just sort of amplifies the horror, right? And that's what magic is in fiction, right? It's a mechanism that you can't really explain how it works. But maybe this is getting too nitty gritty. But like historically, like witchcraft, paganism, like what have you, has been meant to like channel the deity to get things from the deity. But it's usually two things. It's usually knowledge or wealth. And then when we figure out like what Paimon's whole deal is, like you read the book, it's like, he will bring fortune he will bend them to their will, right? So like I could see maybe like in this ritual, like they do get some sort of knowledge from whatever they're fucking doing in the background.
Yeah, I don't know.
To put things in certain places. Or they're just told, like, go to this fence post, like, inscribe our insignia.
Yeah,
like,
that's
let shit happen.
That's, I think, the first indication that something is weird.
Yeah.
When they drive you to the party, they drive by that post and it like holds in that for a couple seconds and you're like, what the fuck is that?
I mean, to me, the first indication that something is weird is way back in the funeral where you see that one creepy guy
smiling at Charlie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird smile, but like as far as like people being creepy, people be creepy.
Correct.
You don't really know what.
That could easily.
It's not until you see him again at the end of the movie that you're like, oh fuck.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another thing that I also find kind of interesting though is like the whole idea of how much they know and how much they're able to control is in the whole thing with like the seances that they are trying to get Annie to go to later in the movie.
Yeah.
Because like the mail's already there. They slide the flyer for the seance at the top. So this is like you can tell that it's not coming from the mail. It's being put in there purposely.
Yeah.
But then Annie just ignores it.
Yeah.
She doesn't even like acknowledge, like there's no scene of her like looking at it and just throwing it away. It's as if she's never even seen it.
Well, she also, I guess, has no indication that her mom was part of any. I mean, obviously, she's not part of a cult, but like all those people that show up at the funeral, she's like, I don't know who the fuck
you are.
Any of these people are. Like she has no like inkling that her mom was into like unsavory activity. Whatsoever.
Yeah, I do really like the scene. This is right after her mother died. Her she goes to a grief like support group.
Yeah,
and I do think you can see Joan sitting like at her like 3:00.
Yeah.
And so there is that connection that you're like already like, oh, this is that same woman that shows up later.
Yeah.
Like, how could she have known that Charlie was going to pass away later? Yeah. It makes it feel organic that she would be there. But there's a whole conversation of like just all the trauma that her mom has instilled in her that she just does not comprehend. Like she just does not know how to feel. Well, she doesn't know if she should hate her mom. She doesn't know if she should like forgive her mom. And it's, as far as like generational trauma shit goes, like it feels real.
Well, that's the thing. So at the funeral for her mom, she obviously doesn't tear her mom a new one, but she is honest enough where she's like, life with my mom
was not easy.
It was not easy. And I don't even remember if she says this in the eulogy, but she's like, and I'm here at this funeral. I'm like, I don't know who the fuck any of you are.
She does say that.
Yeah.
She goes, if I know my mom, she would find it strange that there's all these like new faces here.
Yeah.
Because apparently her mom was very private.
Yes.
Right. And, she just doesn't know that her private parties were with these people.
And I think this is one of the scenes that leads me to my joking synopsis of like the fact that like this family is sort of like totally unequipped to take control of any of their grief and trauma. Because like, I don't know, if like I had a strained relationship with like one of my parents and like they died, I didn't think that there was like a whole other world in there that like cared about them or showed up. I don't know that I would even put anything in like I don't know if I'd take out an obituary ad. I'd just be like, all right, like we're just gonna handle this as a family and like hopefully we have like our support system that like we know.
Yeah.
But like I don't know if I would put myself in that situation where I could like be eaten up by the sharks and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Although I do wonder if that could be an effect of what's the husband's name?
Steve. Yeah.
I don't know if that could be a fact that Steve, being a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever the hell he is,
and he wants to kind of do things the traditional way or the right way.
So he might be like, hey, listen, like, I know you may not like her, but I think you should do this. It could be part of the healing process.
It could be, but then it also just shows that they are not on the same page.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure. So, okay. So going back to the whole thing with them going to this party that eventually sets off our like big actual incident, right? It really is crazy that this is Annie's fault, and I hate to say that.
Oof.
I do.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's making Peter take his young sister
to a high school party. Which, do we get confirmation of how old or young she is?
Okay, so I was reading this shit, and it says that Peter is 16 years old, and Charlie is 13 years old.
Wow.
Which, to me, I don't know why. I could see Charlie being 13. That tracks in my brain. But to me, in my head, I was always like, Peter is like 17 turning 18 type of shit, like senior in high school.
I would age him up 1 year.
I would too.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Like, to me, like, this feels like almost like something that would happen like coming of age, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So like, to me, in my mind, that would be like 17 to 18.
A little older.
So it kind of blew my mind when I was reading like some of the... So I've never really gone in and like read the synopsis
of this movie.
Because like I just watch it.
Right.
So like reading these like little minute details, like he's 16, because that's never addressed in the movie.
Oh.
It comes from the script, I believe.
You just gotta infer it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy that like the mom is like willing to toss Charlie to him.
Well, that's the thing. And it's what I spent a lot of mental bandwidth on this viewing around, because like in that same conversation, the mom's like, "You gonna be drinking at this party?" And he's like, "No." And she's like, "Yeah, bullshit." She's like, "Take your sister." And I'm like, so
you know that there's already going to be drinking at this party. So like,
and like you want the 13-year-old to go, but then she emphasizes that like she needs to socialize with like other kids. So something must be going on in the background where this kid is like way too real. Where the mom's like, "Fuck it, like I don't care, like what danger is here. Like this girl needs to socialize." But
even then, that's the wrong way to go about it, because you socialize a 13-year-old with a high school crowd. That's a different.
And this is where I was wondering. I'm like, okay, is this the magic of the cult?
It honestly could be.
Is this just the trauma from the mom manifesting into like poor decision making from this next generation of mothers?
Mm-hmm.
Is it both? I think that's what I think the movie purposely leaves that a little bit ambiguous to show how like one kind of bleeds into another. But yeah, it was interesting during this movie. During the first time we saw it, I felt so sad for Peter and so sad for certain characters. And this is the first time I watched it where I was honestly like angry at characters.
Yeah, you really like, the more you watch, the more you like look at very, very deep flaws.
Yeah,
in some people.
Like I was even angry at Peter, but that's
yes. I do feel like Peter also could have been like, "Mom, what the fuck?" Because he's very passive about it. Because she's like, "Are you taking your sister?" He's like, I mean, I haven't asked."
This is not where I was angry at Peter.
No, but like saying like, you could just be like, "No, I'm not gonna take my sister to this party. It's me and my friends."
Yeah.
Like you can kind of be a little bit assertive, but I think it's also a process of like, they are going through this grief period. Like you probably don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
So like, to a certain degree, like I get it, but yeah, like you could avoid a lot of these things with just conversation.
Well, that and Peter is really just not an assertive character whatsoever.
No,
any characterization we get of Peter is kind
of very childish. Yeah. Right before this too, it's really funny. We get a phone call, and Steve answers, and he's like, "What do you mean desecrated?" Anyway, they go to this party, and the girl that Peter is crushing on, dude, she fucking pulls a dick move on him, where he's trying to impress her with his weed, and she's like, "Oh, cool, we have a bong in the other room." She walks in, and there's a whole bunch of people. She goes, "Guys, Peter brought weed." Dude, I'd be so mad.
I would be too.
I'd be so mad. But anyway, Chekhov's nuts show up in this. Chekhov's nuts show up in this movie.
What kind of high school party are the kids just like baking a cake from scratch?
Yeah,
I'm sure it exists, but props to these kids for being trained in the culinary arts,
making a delicious chocolate walnut cake.
Yeah,
crazy. That scene though is extremely tense, because you're just like, they are not subtle about the fact that there's nuts here. It's not like it's in the background. Yeah. It is at the foreground of this shot.
And you got one line during the funeral about a candy bar.
Yeah, that doesn't have nuts. Yeah, no, we don't have the EpiPen. Yeah. So I think it comes up twice, because there's that scene, and then also he talks to her directly. He goes, "There's no nuts in that, right?" And she shakes her head. So twice it's mentioned, and then the third time we get the big like just nuts in our face of people. Dude, the way these girls are chopping these nuts, you would think they are like mincing meat.
Which, man, like I don't know, if I was a high schooler baking a cake at a party,
you were high as fuck.
Well, or drunk. But I'm not bringing nuts. I feel like at that age, you just know that your target audience would prefer their cake without nuts.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely.
Dude, I love nuts in cake.
I don't.
No.
But I think I've grown to like it more as I've gotten older.
I see.
At that age, you want the cake from Jewel, man. You want the cookie cake.
Yeah, you want that super sugary cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. But again, it's all like, what could this have been orchestrated by the cult, right? Exactly. Like, you don't fucking know. She eats this cake, and she starts going into like
her allergic reaction.
Yeah, her allergic reaction. She starts like seizing up a little bit, like her throat closes. And I remember thinking the first time we watched this, I'm like, damn, her face must be fucked up. Yeah. They're like, he's in the back of that car, and it's not gonna be good.
No,
I did not expect her head to just be gone.
Yeah.
And we sit with Peter for a hot minute as he's like, I think he even says at one point, "Are you okay?"
I don't remember that.
And I'm like, because I think he
But
like starts to say it,
yeah.
but he cannot get the words out.
Yeah. When the editing of this is fantastic because
You know it.
exactly what happened, like
Yeah.
when it happens. And you're shocked that it did happen because you didn't imagine the movie was going to be going here. But like, yeah, he just kind of sits there for a bit.
Yeah, because I mean, he doesn't know. And I love the shot they do where it's his point of view. You can see the mirror in the corner. He looks up, and right before it gets to Charlie, like he just looks back at the, and it's just like, what else do you as Peter fucking do in this case?
Well, that's the thing. So this is where I do get mad at Peter in this viewing because he does drive home. And he just goes like,
just fucking goes to bed.
Straight to bed, and it's not even that like I blame him, which sounds contradictory to say. But it's like, man, like, like, if you're gonna be laying in bed that whole time, you know how that's gonna get found.
Yeah, I don't know. I do just simply blame that on the fact that it's gotta be extremely traumatizing.
It is.
Like, the shock that he's gotta be in, I just can't.
I can't fathom.
I can't imagine what else he could feasibly do.
It's another good synopsis for this movie. Could be unfathomable shock.
Yeah. Dude, listening to Toni Collette, though, wail like a banshee here.
Off to work, honey. Love you. And then, yeah.
And yeah, dude. Oh, fuck, dude. It's so sad. Like, because you're just waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And, like, because that scene goes on for like 5 minutes. And you just know that she's going to this car.
Yep.
And you're like, please don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. We do get to see Charlie's mangled fucking face.
Yeah, it's like the cherry out the cake.
Dude, it's like a closing to this little chapter of the movie.
Yeah.
Which we do need to see that shot for a scene that's really hilarious that happens later.
Yeah.
But she starts to, she's going through her own grief process again. She wants to go to this thing. That's where she meets Joan.
Yeah.
Officially. Which you can see that she's trying to get her to stay because Annie's leaving.
Yeah.
And Joan flags her down.
Yes.
Right? Like, I feel like most people would see a car pull up and start to drive away.
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool.
She's like, I saw you at the last time.
Yeah, so she's trying to reel her in very hard. And it's not until you go on the rewatch that you're starting to piece together, like, why she's being so pushy.
Yes.
But
How sus of you were, Joan, upon our first viewing in 2018?
Dude, not at all.
Yeah.
No, that shit caught me off guard.
I wasn't either.
There's a scene later that does kind of, it's played as a little weird. They get together. She gets Joan's phone number and they go have tea.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you caught this.
The welcome mat?
No, before that. So she hasn't even called Joan yet, but she's painting a miniature and she goes to reach for there. She's got like a bunch of vials of colors of paint. She goes to reach for the orange one and she's pretty far, and then the blue paint just falls on its own. She doesn't touch that. She's not near that one. The blue paint falls and it lands on Joan's phone number, which is what draws her eye to the phone number.
Oh, yeah, I did not catch that.
Yeah, I caught that one a few rewatches ago. But it's very...
So that is the magic.
That is the magic.
That is the magic.
Right?
Yeah.
It's Paimon steering her towards Joan.
Yeah.
Because it's right after that she calls Joan and says, hey, let's have some tea.
Yeah.
Which is where she sees the doormat.
It's like, my mom used to make ones like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that right there is your first indication that something's up. When they're drinking tea, she like pulls out like a black leaf.
Yeah.
But it's not like a throwaway line. They focus on the fact that she pulls out a black leaf from her mouth. So like you're automatically told like this is important.
Right.
On rewatches, you look at the scene in the funeral and the lady grabs a vial of something with the black leaves and puts it on the grandma's lips.
What does it do?
It's some magic-y shit.
Gotcha.
There's a video by a guy named ZZ's World who does a breakdown of this movie, and he mentions that, like, the leaves and stuff. It's some sort of plant.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
But yeah, like, that's really the only big indication that I had initially about Joan.
Yeah.
I didn't really think much of that. I do find it funny that the one that does feel really coincidental, like where you can't be like this feels planned, is where Annie goes get balsa wood and she goes to the
and then she said that, yeah, I think that's upon my first viewing. I think that's when my radar picked up that something was sus with this lady specifically.
Yeah, she's like, look, we had a seance and it was awesome. and I talked to my son or my grandson. I think his name is Louis, and she's like, let me show you.
Yeah,
and initially,
right then and there,
I'd be like, listen.
This lady, I came
Listen, lady, she's crazy. I don't know what degree of grief I need to be in to be like, let's summon the undead.
Yeah, especially when this lady just ran into you by happenstance.
Yeah, it's fucking great, fucking weird. That scene where they're doing this seance is so funny to me because she has this like she's reading Latin and she goes, yeah, I don't know what the words mean.
Is it even Latin?
I don't know. I'm assuming so because a lot of those words do have like very Latin like.
Some do, but then like so much later on when she's like exercising Peter, like that's when it just sounds like really goofy. And it was the last time I was watching this, I was like, what fucking stupid ass language is this? Because it's either her accent or just the words themselves. I'm like, this doesn't even sound real. But then backwards, but she's like, I don't even know what language this is. It either speaks to how traumatized Toni Collette's character is, or just how like not that smart she is. Or like if this really was Latin and I like saw it written down and heard it, I'd be like, well, it's fucking Latin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's not like that obscure of a language.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It's right before this too is where we have that like huge confrontation at the dinner party or not the dinner party, the dinner scene.
You skip over "I am your mother,"
dude.
Yeah,
that scene is fucking nuts.
Yeah,
which is like, you just look at me with that fucking look on your face, that fucking face on your face. She says, but this is where Peter does start to kind of
poke back a little
quite a bit. I mean, it's crazy how. Hold on. Yeah. But yeah. So it's kind of weird. Like how long can you? Like, let's say you're Peter, right?
Yeah.
Like, you had this shit happen, and, like, you know your mom blames you for it.
Yeah.
But also, like, in the back of your mind, you gotta be like he says, like, she wasn't even supposed to be here.
Right.
Like, Charlie did not want to go. I didn't want her there. You made her. And he does finally voice that.
I think what works for me best about this scene is, for me, this is the scene that best encapsulates the sins of the family. Or like we've talked about numerous examples where there are things outside of their control, well outside of their control, like falling paint bottles, right?
Yeah.
But this is where they all sort of like turn on each other, and their flaws here are very like intrinsic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's kind of like you do feel for every one of these characters, even someone who's as much of a side character as Steve.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you really think about it, Steve is, for the lack of a better term, a non-character here.
Right.
Like, he's irrelevant to the story, right? Like, Paimon has no interest in him.
Right.
He's
just an obstacle.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? But just, like, the shit that he has to deal with as being a member of this family.
Yeah.
Like, is fucking nuts. That, like, right before the dinner scene is where he goes to her Annie's office and he's like, "Hey, dinner's ready." Oh fuck! What the fuck are you doing? And she's like, "Please tell me you are not letting Peter see this."
Yeah.
And she's like, "See what?" Right. He goes, "Motherfucker!" And we see she has made a model.
Yeah.
Of the accident.
She's like, "What? I'm processing the scene."
No, she says what? It's an objective scene. It's an objective. I wrote this shit down and I laughed. Because it's something along the lines of like, it's an objective look at the scene of the accident. And you're like, yeah, it's just Charlie's fucking head on the road with a blood splatter on the post.
Yeah.
And this is where I was like, she's fucking just lost it.
Yep.
I think this is like your very first
indication
that like whatever powder keg is here, like that fuse
is already exploding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking, and he's like, well, dinner's ready. She goes, well, I'm making dinner. He goes, no, I already made the dinner. Come fucking eat. Or don't. I don't give a shit. He's so mad. And then the scene happens at dinner, and he just like, he doesn't know what to do. Because like, what do you do? Do you side with your wife who is like over here ripping your son a new one?
Yeah.
Or do you side with your son who does have a valid point? Like, yes, he is being blamed,
right.
And I'm not saying it's not his fault. He is the one driving. At the end of the day, he's responsible.
But he hasn't had his mom be able to reach out to him in a healthy way.
Yeah,
sort of like move through that together.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I think it's clear you side with your son here. I think this is like, and I think maybe if I had a complaint about this movie, I do think that dynamic of this triangle of father, mother, son is so lopsided in one way, where it's like, yes, like you should clearly be like, the dad should clearly be on Peter's side. Like, I do wish there was a bit more tension to make the dad a bit more of an interesting character.
Yeah.
But at least he's operating logically.
And I do agree. I do think you could do something with having that relationship between Peter and Steve.
Yeah.
Maybe make him a little bit more sympathetic.
Yes.
Towards Peter. Have a few additional scenes, but I do also feel like this movie's not interested in that dynamic.
Correct.
Right. And also I don't know, as like a psychologist, would he even necessarily want to quote unquote pick a side, right?
Yeah.
Would he feel like that's unhealthy to either of them? So I don't know.
Man, good guy, Steve.
I made a note on here. I was like, poor Steve.
Poor Steve is right.
Poor Steve, like, he does not deserve any of this. He's a level-headed guy.
I think in any watch and rewatch I've done of this movie, I've always walked away being like, man, poor Steve.
Dude, poor Steve.
Like, I've gone back and forth between poor Annie. I've gone back and forth between poor Peter. Man.
Always poor Steve.
Always poor Steve.
Good guy Steve. And Steve is dealing with his own shit in the background, right? Yeah. He's dealing with this whole thing with the cemetery, right? With the grave.
If any of you ever have to deal with a cemetery, it's not an easy process.
It's not an easy process. Yeah. So he's dealing with that. Then he's also getting emails about Annie's art installation, right? That she's working on this gallery. And he's like trying to communicate with, like, she's not dealing with this. Like, she's going to need more time. Like, get off our backs, please.
Yeah.
And they're like, can we still at least see a picture of what the progress looks like? Like, dude, buddy, read the room.
Yeah.
Like
it's
Steve is dealing with shit.
Yeah.
We just don't really see it, especially not like on the first watch. Like, you don't process what he really is dealing with in the background.
He's the one who's got to pick up Peter from school. When Peter said shit.
I think multiple times he has to like do shit with Peter, right?
At least twice.
Because the first time he's freaking the fuck out.
Right.
This is like right post seance, right? He sees
in history class where he sees his reflection.
He sees his reflection and he hears the clucking sound in the back.
Yeah.
Right. He gets a phone call.
Right.
He calls Annie. He's like, dude, like, you gotta lay off.
Yeah.
Peter's freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
I think is kind of a good point, because this is kind of where we start kicking off into our third
act.
Like our third act, right? So this is where Peter is now the one being essentially haunted.
Yes.
Right? And throughout the movie, we see this weird glowing light, which even all these views in, I'm still unclear as to what this is.
Yeah.
People believe it's
Paimon.
I keep wanting to say Paimon because yes. But in my game, there's a character named Paimon, spelled the same. But but then it's also weird because, like, is Paimon in Charlie originally, and then the decapitation is what releases him, goes into Annie, her inevitable decapitation later releases him, he goes into Peter, right? I don't know, because then we do see that little flashy light. Charlie sees the flashy light.
Yeah.
Peter sees the flashy light. This is all before so I don't know if it's like meant to signify that this is like what Paimon wants them to see.
No, I think as soon as you see the reflection, I think Paimon's in. I think Paimon's there. Whatever happens first, either the reflection or like the light that's like chasing him through the hallway and gets inside of him. I think Paimon's in him at that point. I just think the rest is all fallout as the demon wants it to be.
I just don't think it. But see, I disagree, because I feel like it's got to be one of those things where it's not until the person has been broken that Paimon can take over. But
he could still be inside.
Maybe.
I have no clue.
I don't know.
But clearly there's like a process and a mechanism, because she had to nurse Charlie from her own teat, right?
Yeah. But it's different, right? Like when something's a baby, I feel like it's easier. You can make the justification of like a baby's easy to.
But regardless, there's a process that has to happen for this magic to work. So like maybe the demon could be inside him, and then to fully like take control. But like all those other bonds have to be
Yeah. Right before this whole shit goes down is where we have that scene with so Annie had told Joan that her and Peter already have a strained relationship because she tried to set them on fire one time.
Yeah.
Very, very nonchalant. How was gonna do anything about it? And then we have that scene where she's like following the trail of ants to his bedroom. This is I believe right after the fight, I believe, because she's then like apologizing to him.
Right.
And she just like says, "I never wanted to be your mother." And the way she says that,
she immediately claps her mouth.
She does, but I remember watching that the first time. I just like gasped and laughed at the same time. It's so funny because you hear everybody go. But this is like kind of her really trying to reach out to Peter.
Yeah.
But the influence of Paimon just does not allow this to happen.
And she's so broken too that she's not able to really reach out.
Yeah, and this is where Peter's starting to get more and more scared. Like things are now actually happening to Peter at this point.
Yeah.
Right, because it's after that happens that like something grabs his head, which freaks him out.
Yeah.
He sees like an apparition of Charlie, whose head falls off, but it becomes a basketball, right? So like he is now starting to be haunted, which then culminates in him smashing the absolute shit out of his face.
Right.
Right. I do think you're right. Maybe he is being at this point more severely influenced by Paimon, but not fully there. There's still like I would say it's almost like a lot of it is still latched onto Annie.
Does the exorcism happens before he smashes his face, right?
Where she goes, "I release you.
I expel you.
I expel you." Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt kind of dumb because I didn't catch until like this time that she's like, "I expel Peter," right?
I expel you, Peter.
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah.
So that's after the history class scene, but before the English class scene.
Yes.
So that's really when Peter's.
Yeah, because it's all happening in that scene where he's starting to like freak himself out.
Yeah. So maybe the ghost has been in there, like taking root in its host.
Yeah, I do think it's one of those things where like he's almost like split himself, kind of like it's almost like a tendril, right? Like he is primarily, I think, in Annie at this point, because then once Peter smashes the shit out of his face and Steve Ghost picks him up, he's out cold.
Yeah.
And then we have a few scenes with Annie and Steve where she's like, "I tried to burn this notebook. Look what happened in it." Like images of Peter. Yeah. Like being like almost like a target. Like, "I want you to burn this because if I do it, it burns me."
Right.
Like, I can't do it to myself, but if you do that and this happens to me, like it's fine. And it's after that scene where she takes the notebook, throws it in the fire, and Steve just goes up in fucking flames. And that's when she just like, I think that's her breaking point. And I think that's when Paimon is officially able to like fully.
Well, because that's when she starts doing supernatural shit.
That's when she does like full on like climbing on walls. I still remember to this day that scene like being so fucking scary to me.
The fire or the creeping in the
like when you see, so we pan to Peter after he's finally waking up, and like the room is very dark and like it's only being lit by the moonlight and it's never like focused on at all, but in the corner you see Annie like Spidey like stuck on the wall.
So at this point, had you already seen it cut tonight and then all the naked people are outside?
Yes.
Do you remember if you realized they were all naked people on that first watch?
No.
Yeah.
It wasn't until my second watch that I was like, gross.
Yes.
It's also, I'll mention this later because I can't verify yet. I would need to watch it again. But anyway, but yeah, that scene, like, it's very effective because, like, they never make a point to signal Annie as being in the corner of that shot. So, like, it's up to you to see it. And then even once you see it, nothing happens.
Right.
So the whole time you're like waiting for that release of tension that just never really comes.
Yeah.
Because, and they do two shots where you see Peter, you see Annie, then he hears some noise, he looks over to the door, and you see the door.
Right.
And then it cuts back to Peter, and you're like, oh, this is where something's going to happen. She's going to be standing right behind him. She's going to jump at him. No, she's still in the corner.
Yeah.
And then there's another shot, and you see her floating away.
Yes.
So you never get that satisfaction of like that jump scare.
Is the first thing he sees the naked dude?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's so fucking
funny.
It's,
at this point, like, you're just so jarred. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
yeah.
This is where you, the viewer, are like totally bamboozled. Like
totally bamboozled.
And it's honestly great that this final sequence doesn't last any more than like 5 to 10 minutes or whatever, or however long it takes.
Yeah.
Because that would just be a total trip. I think actually this is what separates a movie like this from Smile 2. And I really like Smile 2, but Smile 2 might be one of those movies that like I can watch and appreciate and don't really have any desire to watch again because it's like so despairing like throughout the movie. And yes, this movie does fall into like utter despair, but like at least it doesn't fall there until like the movie is about to end. Whereas in Smile 2, you're just like
the whole fucking time. Yeah, it's relentless.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Smile 2.
Yeah.
We're like, but even in Smile 2, like you have that feeling of dread where you're like something can jump at you at any minute.
Yeah.
And things do jump at you. So you do have that release of the tension.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you don't.
No.
Even yeah, go on.
In this scene, tension is really only once you get into the treehouse and you hear a voice for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, a soothing voice and the music. Well, I don't think there's music yet. Like,
well, no, you do. You do get a release a little bit. So like when he sees his dad's charred body, again, same idea. You see Annie in the back, which she's then distracted by the sound of the naked guy in the closet, which then leads to Annie finally jumping at him from the corner.
Yeah.
So that is our first like, okay, we can kind of breathe because now there's action happening. Right. Which
Yeah.
just thinking about that scene,
yeah, that's the quintessential scene of this movie.
Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Because like you're sitting there going, damn, she's hitting this thing hard.
Yeah.
And then you have one very simple scene. It's her on her hands, her knees, bashing her head against his door. And you're like, okay, she is possessed.
Right.
Fine. But then you also realize she's on the ceiling, bashing her head into this attic door. And dude,
before at this point, there's some ambiguity as to whether the demon wants to like take Annie and keep her alive and just like keep her possessed. But like once you get to the point where she's bashed her head up against the door, you're like, oh no, like Annie is not walking out of this movie. Annie's not walking out of this movie. Like you knew she wasn't gonna walk out of here like unpossessed, but you're like, oh, she is a meat bag that's ready to be used and exploited by this demon. And then the piano cutter. Or the piano.
Yeah. So, by the way, there's in that scene where he's in the attic, eventually he gets distracted by the noise of what's happening, and then he hears like a creak, and he turns and he sees naked people. And you're like, when did these naked people get in here? But they've been there the whole time, because even in those scenes, you do see them in the back hiding behind like the fixtures.
There's more as I watch this stuff. I noticed more hiding naked people.
Yeah, which is not a sentence I thought I'd
utter. But this time, they weren't ready to like jump and get him or anyone.
They never touch him. They're all very like. I mean, right? It goes to show like this is who they want. Like they're not trying to hurt him. They want him to be their leader.
And where is the guy from the funeral? Like his smile is just naturally creepy, and he chases Peter. Like if you look at their faces, they're not trying. No,
he doesn't chase Peter.
No, oh, he doesn't.
No, he smiles at Peter, which is what distracts him from Steve and from him looking. But then when he turns back, that's when Annie's the one that chases him.
Peter. I see.
But the whole time, these cultists don't do anything to Peter. Yeah, they wave at him, they smile at him. And I think another reason why I feel like Paimon was already in Charlie from a young age is because the guy gives Charlie that exact same smile.
Paimon wasn't Charlie for you.
So that's why I'm thinking it's gone for those three, and it's not until the head's chopped that Paimon's like essence is released. Yeah, because like at that point, then, which by the way, that's a very, very reasonable response that Peter has, where he sees these naked ladies. And his mom is slicing her head
with a piano wire,
and he's like, "Yep, I'm out," and he just jumps off. And you know, for a movie that's so serious, this visual effect of him jumping out of this window makes me laugh every time.
Yep.
It's so funny. It's so perfectly timed. It's still scary, but there's something comical about this specific thing.
Yeah, that does deflate some tension in a needed in a needed way.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like when the feather fully lands into hell in the center of this movie, it does land as a feather does. You don't just get like thrown.
Yeah, so this is our big bombastic moment. I love the soundtrack in this scene.
Yeah.
It's just like the horns just starting to like grow and grow and grow. It's very regal.
Yeah.
But also very off-putting at the same time.
Talk about the square footage of this treehouse. My goodness.
My goodness, you can fit. You know that meme where it's like smacks car. You can fit so many blank. You smack this treehouse. You can fit so many naked cultists in this. Yeah, dude. There's so many naked cultists on this. It calls back to that shot of the dollhouse with just the 3 walls, with the 4th wall being us looking in. Charlie's head is on there looking like the pigeon that she drew. Like all of this is just tying together.
I forget, the grandmother's corpse
is also kneeling.
Was missing a head though, right?
Also missing a head.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if the grandma had any bit of Paimon in her, they cut it off to release. I think it's one of those things where like now all of Paimon is in Peter. Yeah. Where before it may have been like a little bit here, a little bit in Annie, a whole bunch of it in Charlie, some of it on the grandma. Now it's all
is there.
All there. And this is one of those few movies where I'm not even mad that the baddies won. Yeah. It's like I just had such a grand old time watching this.
Absolutely.
Dude, fuck this grandma.
Fuck this grandma.
That's grandma. That's
awful.
Because there's that scene in the very beginning when Annie's looking through her box of shit, where she gets like a handwritten note in one of her like, it's a book on spirituality, I think it says. And it says like sorry for everything that's happened. All our suffering will be worthwhile in the end. Something along those lines. And she's like, and Annie's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, did Granny have a plan.
Granny had a plan. That was one of the first notes I left.
I remember you're like, I'm glad this woman's burning in hell.
I am.
Yeah. This is one of those movies though that I wish more people gave a chance. Because I feel like it's also one of those movies that like the people who watch it, I think overall generally like it.
Well, now harder to give a chance. It's not hosted on any streaming site for the time being.
Is it officially out of Max?
It's not in Max.
Really?
You can find it on Hulu Premium. You can obviously buy it on YouTube or Amazon, but it's not currently streaming for free anywhere.
Yeah, I guess you're right. What the fuck is Canopy?
Midsommar is.
Yeah, they had a partnership. A24 and Amazon had a partnership for a while where their movies would
stream there.
That's how I watched Hereditary multiple times. That's how I watched Midsommar's extended version. I will say, as far as the Ari Aster like core trilogy goes, I do feel that like while my enjoyment for Midsommar has gone up significantly, I still feel like the distance in just like
between 1 and 2,
between Hereditary and Midsommar, it's still shockingly high.
Every once in a while on Reddit, the question will come up between who's the better director between Eggers and Aster, and I think it's not a consensus yet, but I think a lot of people agree that Hereditary might be the best movie. Eggers has the stronger body of work.
Maybe.
I think he definitely has a stronger body of work.
I think it's also a matter of like Aster really only had 3 movies.
Yep.
And the only one that I would honestly say it is and feels like a dud
is the third one.
Is Beau is Afraid.
Correct.
And I think this is such a detriment to that movie for me.
Yeah.
That even though I would in a heartbeat watch Hereditary or Midsommar over any Eggers movie.
Really?
In a heartbeat.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I only take Hereditary over them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I love The Witch.
I do too. Yeah. But I do think that after going back and watching Midsommar, even the original base version, but especially the director's cut, I do think I really have grown to love that movie a lot. So I think I would still watch those 2 movies. But Beau is Afraid is such a weird like step down that I feel like it does tank his filmography.
Lowers the average.
So I don't know. I'm very curious to see what he does next because I think he's been trying to get away from like outright horror for a while. He says he wants to do some different things, but at the same time, I'm like, maybe find your niche and like,
what's your wheelhouse?
And like, what's your because like he's really good at making these weird like fucked up stories. I mean, his shorts certainly up there.
Yeah.
It's
if my former student Rachel is listening to this. What the fuck, Rachel?
Did she tell you to watch it?
No. She was writing one of her college essays.
Oh, I remember you showed me this.
Yeah.
I remember.
About how she wanted to go to film school. The film that wanted her to go to film school was There's Something About the Johnsons or the Robinsons. I don't fucking
Johnson.
Yeah. And I was like, Rachel. And she's like, what? I'm like, the one by Ari Aster? She's like, yeah. I'm like, the short film. She's like, yeah. I was like, I don't think that this should be.
Did she end up? I remember you showing me this. I remember you showing me the writing.
I think so. I think
she ended up keeping it.
I mean, she could submit whatever she wants to submit.
Because I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Everyone's influenced by something, and you'd be surprised by some of the weird shit that's influenced some people.
I'm sure, but
you know, if your student Rachel,
to quote my language arts teacher in 8th grade, she's like, if you don't know what to write on this essay, you get on there and you lie.
This cannot be a lie. You know, props to Rachel. I don't think anybody would lie and say there's something strange about the Johnsons. Is the movie that?
No, but then that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, you can keep the rest of this essay. You just lie about whatever this movie was.
No. I hope Rachel owns up to her influences, and I'm happy for her. If your student Rachel ever makes it big,
I'm happy for Rachel too.
I'm gonna be so happy for Rachel.
I'm happy for Rachel.
What is the meaning here of this movie? I know we totally pivoted really quick before we wrap up.
The fact that these white people need to go to church.
White people need Jesus.
I mean, I have my meaning. I think it could either go just between like sometimes some traumas are outside of our control. And I think we also have to remember that this was kind of at the beginning of the generational trauma like trend. So you don't have a whole slew of films already having worked this out.
Yeah.
I go back to the dinner scene where the family just all sort of like turns on each other.
And it's also crazy though that scene has nothing to do with like the supernatural.
No.
You could take that scene and put it in another movie that is about.
You could put it in a rom-com.
You put it in a rom-com.
Yeah.
You put it in the drama.
Yeah.
And this still works. I really do feel like this movie is very much a drama with some very, very, very strong horror segments.
Yes.
Here and there.
Yes.
This movie is not horror throughout.
Correct.
A good chunk of this movie is dealing with
the drama of the
like
family.
The drama of the family, right? Like even you could even have these events happen in a movie where nothing is scary, which sounds crazy.
I agree.
You could have an incident, like I mean,
you could have a car accident. It could just be a normal car accident.
This is gonna sound so stupid.
Right.
Have you heard of the TV show The Incident?
I think so.
So The Incident is a show from somewhere in Europe, I think, so in the original show, there's an explosion at like a power plant, and then unfortunately, like some kids are killed. Yeah. And so then the entire show is dealing with the aftermath of like the parents grieving and how it affects the community. Well, the Mexicans decided to remake the show. I'm pretty sure it's Mexicans. And the inciting incident was a bouncy castle that gets swept up by a strong wind.
That's fantastic.
And the kids get taken away.
Hey, man.
And I'm like,
tragedy can strike.
I'm like, if you can make a show, a drama about something as goofy as that, you can make a very, very strong drama about this exact incident.
Tragedy can strike in all shapes and sizes. Here's all I'll say. I think this movie, when you ask about meaning, I think it can be very clear in terms of like what not to do, like how not to handle grief. But I don't think, and I don't mean this as a knock against this movie. I think this is where I struggle articulating like what is the meaning of this movie, because I don't think there's any scene of juxtaposition where it's like, here is what healthy anything looks like.
Yeah,
it's just one family and how they fall apart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's the whole like you can look at the three characters and look at just how they handle things and go, okay, maybe that's not.
Yeah.
Like it's three different ways, right? You have Annie, who is, for lack of a better term, she's trying to like distract herself. She is still working.
Yeah.
Right? She's going to these support groups, but she's not really, right? But at the end of the day, she's also lying to her husband instead of saying like, hey, I'm going to these support groups.
Yeah.
Which I feel like as a therapist, he might say like, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Right? Like it so she's already not handling well in that. Like Steve himself is not handling it well because he's being very passive.
Yeah.
Right? He's not really also doing anything to help her or Peter.
Right.
And then you have Peter who's like essentially just getting super baked.
Yeah, he's not unequipped. I think this is what also leads me to always find what's her name? Lori?
Joan?
Joan. Her speech at the end to Paimon. I always find this fascinating. And I've even mentioned it on this very program in one of our previous 99 episodes before. How she's like, we are a cult, like we love you, we reject the Trinity.
We reject the Trinity.
And that always caught me a little off guard because I was like, oh, there was no talk of any religion anywhere else previous to this movie. Like most exorcism movies, you got like the padre, like right, you got something. But there was nothing here. And I've always found that fascinating. And I've always been curious as to what Ari Aster why he put that line in here if religion otherwise was just totally absent from this movie.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I do think there's an inherent religiousness that needs to be brought in when you are summoning a literal king of hell.
For sure.
So, like, you're not going to be like, oh, we are here to worship you, Paimon, one of the 8 kings of hell, but also, like, praise Jesus.
No, not praise Jesus. But they basically say, and also, like, F you, Jesus, right?
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, though, because, like, they're saying, like, we pray to you.
Yes.
So, therefore, we are rejecting the traditional.
Yes. Yeah, but there's none of that tradition anywhere in the movie. So,
yeah,
that's why I do think the movie's focus is just to show you what a fall looks like.
Yeah.
And I do walk away from this movie like kind of hopeless because this movie doesn't really explore any of like what, any sort of like positive element of grief or like dealing through adversity or anything like that. So
yeah.
It does, for sure. It does what it was trying to do and it succeeds.
Yeah. Yeah, it is also kind of an interesting, the title to me, like Hereditary, right? You have 2 ways to look at it. Like you can inherit someone's wealth. And in this case, like the grandma is trying to get them to inherit.
Yeah.
Like, because that's the whole point, right? Paimon is supposed to bring wealth and knowledge, right?
Yeah, and to bind other people to your will.
Yeah, yeah. But then there's also like the whole idea of, are these people just fucking schizophrenic?
Yeah.
And I'm glad the movie kind of plays with this a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Because they do kind of touch on like the family had history, quote unquote, of mental illness.
Yeah.
But then, just kidding, it's demons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking nuts. Man, I'm glad. It took us almost 2 whole years
to talk
about Hereditary.
We just mention it every time.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. But I'm in 10 years, we're gonna spontaneously get together and we're gonna do our flashback episode on John Wick. John Wick Chapter 4.
I can't wait.
Because that's the only thing that we need. We need to bring in John Wick and Keanu into our Hereditary verse.
I think that could even be sooner than 10 years.
Absolutely. Dude, yeah. I rewatched that movie not too long ago.
John Wick 4?
Dude, it's so fucking good.
It's a great movie.
Ballerina's coming out.
Yeah. That could be a good time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, thank you very much, everybody. I hope everybody loves Hereditary as much as I do.
Yes.
I think I might love this a little more than you.
Yeah, you probably do. I mean, You've seen it 20 times. I still love this movie.
I lost track.
Yeah.
I watch this movie at least twice a year. This year I saw it 3 times.
And it's always when Katie goes out of town.
Katie went out of town early in the year.
Yeah.
And then in April, they did an IMAX re-release. I think we were going to try to go, but you had a sports thing that night, so you couldn't go.
Yeah, very sad. Don't coach, kids.
Free time is worth the stipend.
Free time is worth the stipend.
But anyway, this was my 3rd time watching this movie this year alone. And man, every time it's a good time for me.
Every time it's not a good time.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching or listening to our 100th episode.
It's been a beautiful centennial, my friend.
It's been. We got Nosferatu coming out.
We do.
We got Sanic.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for the autistic people.
It's a great 2 weeks.
Great 2 weeks. We will be back soon. We gotta do our end of the year wrap up.
Absolutely.
And until then, he has been Thana.
He has been Javier.
This has been the Cine-Scoots Movie Show. Bye.